That's good because that's what life's all about. So for our listeners, Julian Kaufmann, juliankaufmann.com. To kind of fire the episode off here, it's a change of format for me. I don't really like to follow any kind of structure or format. I just like to wing it. But we are conversational here. So for our new listeners who've never heard of you, I mean, why juliankaufmann.com? All right. You got the brand behind your name and you're obviously hustling. You got some new book content coming out. What made you launch your own website? What made you say, you know what, I'm going to put my own stuff out there and get my own name out there and build my own brand? Because you're a classic example, like all of us, where we all had to start something while we were doing something else. We have a full-time hustle, the job, if you want to call it that, but yet something triggered you to start doing the juliankaufmann.com. So what's up?
Sure. So I really think that we're here to serve others. And before we started recording, we shared just something we have in common about helping others and teaching and learning and sharing. And that's something that's been with me my whole life. And I've been very fortunate, lived an abundant, blessed life. I had a challenging period, and from that awoke and had a spiritual awakening. And so I wanted to share that message, which is a little different than what I currently work on in my day job, if you will. So kind of following that drive and answering the call to share that message, I sort of went down one path of trying to create a brand, if you will. And then actually, I think I ran across a Brendan Burchard teaching video series where he recommended that you go with your name. Because if you align yourself with, chicken soup for the soul, like Jack Canfield, maybe the connection can get lost and you have more flexibility as a thought leader. So that's kind of what I saw, that I wanted to write more than one book and kind of evolve into different things, but be the author and the creator of those things. So made the choice to create my own brand. And truthfully, it was a little unnerving. And I think I've talked to other entrepreneurs and some of those limiting doubts about, well, who's going to listen to me, or what do I have? And some of those things I did struggle with a little bit, but decided to take the plunge, and here we are. So it feels a little nervous or nerve-wracking, but it's like taking those steps despite any anxiety. It makes you alive. It's like when you speak in front of a crowd, the butterflies, that's energy. And if you can kind of change your mindset and not be afraid of that, but to kind of go with it, it animates you, it energizes you, and it just creates more of a flow.
Well, and talking about flow, obviously great keyword here, tying it back to your new book coming out. So, and like flow, we could talk about that also from my favorite keyword, which is fuel. Obviously the tagline for this show is we're here to fuel our listeners. We're here to fuel your health, your business, your lifestyle, right? Those are those three domains that you and I talked about a month ago that I care a lot about, because people really struggle these days on balancing them. There's a lot of other domains we could be talking about. You got your family, your love, your relationships, your fitness, furthering your intelligence, obviously from an educational standpoint. Because I did minor in psychology when I went back to school a few years ago to bang out a BS in marketing. And I really appreciated the psychology classes because that's what really opened this up. And that was back in, I think, 08, 09. And that flow state we've heard about online. There's people literally speak and write books about this flow state. And talk about, let's tie this together for the audience here. Like, why did you choose that word and that? Because obviously for our listeners here, real quick, I mean, you have a lot of electrical background. I'm just going to just throw that word out there. I'll let you define it further. And you and I connected a little bit on that because years ago, I had actually originally went to college at Penn State for engineering. And I already had, from high school years, I had studied microelectronics technology from DC to AC to digital microprocessing. So there's something around technology and flow of current. So let's dive into that a little bit more.
Well, sure. So yes, I am an electrical engineer. So I do have that degree. Studied and practiced with electric utilities. So that's been part of my early business career. I now work in business development, working with private equity companies and helping optimize energy assets, power plants, be it solar, wind, natural gas fired. So kind of the whole variety of creating energy and then distributing it, transmitting it. So that's my professional life. But then from a spiritual standpoint, flow of life, life is changing and there's an energy to it. And the philosophy, you explain things that are really difficult to grasp and analogies, things that work for you. And that was part, the light bulb went off, right? That's an analogy for an idea. Light bulbs are fueled by electricity. Everything in our universe has an electrical component to it. So it's woven in everything we do. And when I had the spiritual awakening, which I felt the energy flow through me, and I was in an optimal flow state, to use Csikszentmihalyi, I can't say his name, but the man who really coined the term flow, which is an optimal state. That experience occurred to me, and I observed these 4 flow gates. And again, just real quickly to describe what those are. So much like how certain materials conduct electricity more easily than others, we can more easily conduct a flow of life by how much we exhibit of these certain 4 flow gates. So what I observed, the first would be presence. So that dovetails with what you teach and kind of highlighted about your health, your diet, your family, but really to be present. The A in the path is acceptance. That's not judging. It's really being in the here and now. And then from that standpoint, you can transcend things and really kind of turbocharge your experience with practicing gratitude. So the path, the T, is thankfulness. So by expressing gratitude, you kind of open things up more. And then the last is the H, which is helping, and that's helping others. And so to dovetail with your psychology background, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and once you are self-actualized and you tend to be more altruistic, there really becomes so much more energy. It's not it's better to give than to receive, and is really true. And so that gives you even more energy, and you just keep on building on. It's a positive feedback loop that it just keeps on going. So that's kind of the nexus. I was explaining what I observed from my personal standpoint and developed the theory of what I call theory of conductivity, which is related to the flow of life through us, imagining us as a conductor, and what are the properties of the conductor that either inhibit or allow for more flow. And so that's where the flow gates come in to help regulate that. So there's a framework that I developed that I observed firsthand. So I'm a bit of a practicing scientist. I have this theory that I'm developing and teaching and working with folks to dive a little deeper in things that work or don't work, or want some additional explanation. So that's the genesis of this book, based on what I experienced and connecting it with physical laws, with scientific background, and then with spiritual truths, to kind of tie that in together in a way so that when someone's telling you, well, just practice gratitude. Well, I've always wanted to know why, as a young kid, and maybe that's why I became an engineer. I would take apart, TV sets, and I just wanted to know why. And so I've kind of figured out a theory of why and connected it in this framework. And so I want to share that with the world, with the idea that I don't want people to go through what I had to go through to develop this, right? That's the beauty of books, is that you can learn so much from others without having to go through the trials and tribulations yourself.
True. And actually, real quick, I you were trying to figure out the gentleman who had kind of created this whole point of the flow state. And I'm going to try something here for you to see if this actually plays through for you to hear, because I can't say the guy's name in here, but maybe you'll recognize it. 1 second here. Did you hear that?
No, but it's like
Okay.
Mihaly
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It's Hungarian.
Yeah.
And from what I just played it for our listeners digitally, so hopefully they hear it. And I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty close. I'm going with 80% success rate, because that is one hell of a name. Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
And in Hungarian, it's actually reversed. You say the last name first and Mihaly last.
So there's an author by the name of Stephen Kotler who wrote Rise of Superman, and he kind of picked up that flow state, and he has the Flow Genome Project. So he is moving it on, and he kind of took adventure, extreme sports athletes, like Laird Hamilton and others.
Oh yeah, now we're talking my style. I'm a big fan of those guys.
Yeah.
I'm the
and
adrenaline
mapping
junkie.
their brain. Yeah, that it was really interesting because in a very short time they've taken the abilities of human performance to uncharted levels. And so this flow state, and I'm a musician, and I really enjoy playing music, and in those times I'm not really thinking, I'm not aware of anything. And other activities, you hit a great golf shot, which doesn't happen hardly at all for me, but it has happened occasionally. And
yeah, I'm few and far between on that one as well. So you're not alone.
Yeah. But every now and then there are things that put you in that flow state, and your brain waves are relaxed, but you're able to tap into new innovative things. And like Michael Jordan talked about being in the zone, and basketball players when they're playing, and it's just an altered reality in some ways, but it maybe doesn't need to be, and that we can be in those states more often. And I think that's where the Flow Genome Project is wanting to go. So kind of to go back to where we started, flow is an optimal state of being. Flow is related to electrical current. Flow is something that people talk about with life flowing. And so all those things are touched on in this book.
Well, so not to get crazy advanced, but is this also incorporating in components of physics as well?
Very little, but yes.
Okay.
I touch on some very simple electrical engineering laws, like Ohm's law.
Oh man, I haven't studied that in years. Ohm's law. To our listeners, by the way, Ohm is spelled O-H-M, so not in the yoga form.
Yeah, well, that's another thing, that the homonym between the two, ohm and ohm, it's kind of interesting to me that, one deals with resistance, the other's kind of the sound of the universe and being connected and flowing with that. So that's an idea that I want to flesh out a little bit more in a subsequent book.
That would be very interesting, man. If you could, maybe a simple title for that would be Ohm versus Ohm, or something along those lines.
Have you been looking in my Dropbox folder? Because I have a little, I have this the symbol of Ohm with the Ohm, the letter Omega.
Oh yeah,
Ohm doesn't equal. Ohm doesn't equal
the graphic design for that book cover would be awesome, because whether people believe it or not, they'll be drawn to it from the techie side or from the spiritual yogi style. I think you've got something there, man, and that's the marketing guy in me coming out, because what you've been talking about for the past few minutes to our listeners here is something that's a very big argued topic. And I'm going to say argued because think about it. You clearly found something, an awakening. You tapped into something that will go with a more religious or faithful part of your life now these days. I have not a lot of religious background. Doesn't mean I don't have faith in things or faith in the world. I don't go to church. Doesn't mean that I'm I guess I could consider myself agnostic. And the funny thing is, when I went back to school to finish my degree, I was following an advanced curriculum accelerated, and it was at a private Catholic university here locally. So I got a real wake-up call on religion, because I had zero background. And then everybody who finishes a degree there, no matter what domain, you have to take 3 different tiers of theology. So
Oh, well.
I've learned very quick a lot more about religion than I'd ever had.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
the point I'm making with this is it's hilarious because these are two weird things. Like historically, in my experience, you can correct me on this. The highly technical engineering mindset is so logical. They don't embrace this spiritual, faithful, religious, whatever you want to word it as, world. It's like oil and water. Do you
Right.
agree or disagree?
I do think that the two worlds kind of operate in different planes. And I think at the crux, the Tao Te Ching, the opening line goes that the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. And I think that we all struggle with describing something that really can't be described.
Mm-hmm.
So at
Everybody's
the essence,
and people are wired differently. Some people need to find a logical answer. Other are fine with leaving it in that gray area.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a religious scholar by any means. I have my own personal story where I grew up in the South. I was Lutheran and then raised in kind of a Southern Baptist environment. I did not find much comfort in any of that. Kind of left organized religion, studied, read, new thought type stuff. But like I said, I had this awakening that kind of came about through some difficult periods in my life, and it just all of a sudden clicked. And I was like, oh, well, this is like this, and in my mind, everything in the universe is energy. And physicists have identified four fundamental forces, and they're looking for laws that create or unify these things. So electricity or electromagnetism is one of the four fundamental forces, like gravity. So whatever it is that's animating this universe, whatever you want to call it, it has some electrical components to it. And so taking that truth and then figuring out some of these other things in a way to explain what I experience. So, I think either camp would be able to really take my book to task on, on sort of the religious, spiritual component, or on the scientific pieces. People can argue things, but my point is that there's an energy out there, and there's a way that we can do better with the energy that we've been given, whatever the name is. It's like we've done a lot with recycling and conservation of energy. We're not using fossil fuels, right? Trying to be more environmentally friendly, but we really don't practice the same degree of concern for our own well-being. Why should we meditate? Why do we need to take breaks to calm the anxious mind? The energy that we expend in that, and then when you look at what could be developed if we operate in these flow states, which the brain waves are in a much more relaxed environment, and we're able to create new things. And my belief, we're here to live and learn and love and share and create things. So it's a better way, an optimal way for us to be. And these four elements, the frameworks, pretty universal, that it's hard to argue with. Well, me recommending that you should practice gratitude, and it's not very controversial. Of no one would say, well, no, you shouldn't. So just kind of tying it into why, or providing an explanation framework around that and the benefits in terms of more energy available to do more, whatever it is. My contribution could be that develop this theory, shared it, someone hears it, they start incorporating and practicing these things, and then they in turn are able to do more than they would otherwise. And, then it's like my mission is complete there. That was a great use of my resources to help others.
Sure. Well, and not to do a full rewind here, but you kind of skipped over an important piece here that, again, obviously, I'm sure you're probably going to dive into this more into your book, but I would love to help our audience understand why you've taken such a mission into this new book, and also into your lifestyle, and also of how you connected with people like PJ Dixon. And he's a powerful man that I've met this past year as well. And it's interesting to get that full circle here, but can you give us a little bit more insight into this powerful change and why you shifted your life? What was some of that pain or some of that reason that you finally were awakened to make a massive positive shift?
Well, it involved my children. My older daughter nearly died, and that really changed me. Any of your listeners who are parents, once you have a child, really the level of love that you have for your children just is amazing. So in that context, and then to come face to face with loss started the journey. I had other things happen related to my company that I worked at was winding down and being sold. I had a lot of financial bills to pay for the care of my daughter, and went through some other difficult times, including a divorce. So I sort of had all of the superficial identities of father, husband, ex type of job. All those things were taken away.
A lot's piling up.
Yeah, and it was sort of stripped away, and then it was very difficult, and I had to just learn to be present and accept all the things that were happening, right? So that was the beginning of the presence and acceptance. And I had to learn how to take care of myself. The adage, you can sleep when you die, I think I used to live by that, and really was a hard-charging, competitive person.
I used to say a similar quote to that, which is, it's important to catch for our listeners here. Again, I'm an adrenaline junkie. We're go-getters. You were a go-getter. You were building a family. You were trying to take care of your daughter. We used to say things. I said that in my 20s a lot. I'm not really necessarily I'll sleep when I die, but it's you figure there was almost a badge of honor or something tied to the fact that, man, I just put in a 60-hour week, man, crushed it for my new career. I'm earning that next promotion. And it's but what are you sacrificing with your health and your lifestyle for that business goal? And
exactly.
I mean, clearly this was a struggle for you.
Well, it was. And I think a lot of it could be, just the age and being a guy and my family of origin and just the way I was brought up. But, I'm a little older. So, in the 80s with conspicuous consumption, lifestyles of the rich and famous, and just buy this, you can have this new car, the yuppie syndrome and all these things was materialism was kind of thrown there. And so without a solid core, you become influenced by that. I was. And
everything is surface level versus soul deep.
Exactly. So another book I have is called The Skin Effect, and it's going to be all about that, about kind of being on the surface, being down below, and being really fully engaged. But yeah, so kind of operating from that level, just for background, not really grounded, use an electrical term, right? So you're kind of blown by the winds. And it's very important, for electrical.
It is true. I mean, we just talked about grounding a couple nights ago. I was recording with the you're down south. You're in the Carolinas, right?
Yes, North Carolina.
Yeah, so go even further south and more middle of the country, go to Louisiana. And I just had on the show, he's airing actually this Monday. He's actually pretty famous, Dr. Jack Cruz with a K. And he's his career-wise, he's a neurosurgeon and a neuro guru. But we were talking about mitochondrial health, health tied to your eyes and just, blue light and all kinds of discussion points. But we also kind of briefly touched on that piece, how things called grounding, the practice of getting outside and not wearing your shoes and getting grounded to our earth. And, while you're absorbing the sun, there's all of this stuff. And obviously he explained it differently than probably you're going to explain it, because there's different facets of what grounding truly is. Not just, hey, I'm grounding my house so the electrical current can ground into the ground in case I have a lightning strike, but this is much, much bigger than that.
Well, it's interesting. I have not met him, but a colleague of mine is in one of his groups, and I have read some of his articles about the blue light and have incorporated, the blue blocker sunglasses at night to try to help sleep better, not be disrupted, by the blue light. But on the grounding piece, I mean, there are some people, I don't do this, don't necessarily recommend it, but people sleep in their beds with grounding mats that are literally connected to the neutral currents, the ground wires in their house, so that they are electrically connected. Yeah, so they make grounding mats, and when people make electronics, they have static protectors to discharge static charges, so you kind of wire yourself that way.
Oh yeah, we used to. I used to work on circuit boards, and we stood on grounding mats while we were working on the boards, because it's very easy to build up static electricity, especially if you just came off of a carpet or something like that. So before we worked on components, this is back in high school, by the way, but yeah. It's you always touched a piece of metal or something to ground out, or in a lot of chip factories, they literally stand on grounding mats, and they're wearing they used to wear like a wristband that was wired to the grounding mat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a similar thing that sort of, as we are grounded each day, kind of in reality and kind of in the present moment, like how are we there? We don't have like the stray voltage to go back to, what happens if things aren't grounded. You could have stray currents, other things happen that could damage, the circuit components and cause damage. But so I was not really connected, didn't have a strong center, so I was easily buffeted back and forth. But then I kind of woke up from that and realized, we talked about the sleep a little bit, and then started taking care of the physiology, and then I noticed the psychology change, which it's not new by any means, but for me, I was too in it to notice it, kind of like the frog in the boiling water versus when they start off slowly, they don't know they're going to be cooked. But if you put a frog in a hot pot, he'll jump right out. Otherwise, if you go slowly, he won't know he can't feel it, and then he's cooked that way. So,
gotcha. Yeah, I've seen that experiment.
The importance of just being able to reset and to be present. So that was part of it. And then I noticed that I was very thankful for that experience, because I was able to experience life like I had been preoccupied with achieving certain things. So I missed a lot. And so through that process and the struggle, all the hardship, I kind of woke up and life was like a paradise. I was able to see. I was born again, but I was able to see things that were there, but I didn't really notice it because I think I was preoccupied in my mind. So,
well, and the scary part on this point here that you're telling us right now is that this happens day in, day out to thousands of people around the world. Unfortunately, especially here in our country, those of us who have, in your case or in my case, in different ways, we've kind of rebuilt and rediscovered ourselves to help, take ourselves really, it's kind of I call it hacking. Like we're literally hacking ourselves, fixing or working on those areas that were holding us back. Like we thought we were going full steam ahead, and we were really actually building speed bumps or even dams to hold us back over the years. We just didn't realize it. And unfortunately, the people who finally wake up are usually the ones who reach a point of heart attack, stroke, not paying attention. All of a sudden, boom, you're getting into a car accident. Like, unfortunately, this is, I hate to take it to the extreme, but that's usually what most people nowadays talk about, which is their wake-up call. It's usually health-related.
Yeah, precisely. And then you ask why I'm doing this. It's precisely that, because people don't have to get to that extreme level. There's things you can do, small steps, that you teach, beneficial things people can learn and take care of their bodies and do more without having to kind of go through hardship to develop this strategy. So that's really the last piece of it, that, I was grateful for the opportunity to wake up and then be able to share that and to help others.
Well, and part of helping others here is that, and what we just talked about right before this point here, is the fact of part of helping others is also getting people to help themselves. And if it takes a podcast episode or reading a book, or heck, reading a chapter, or just one line of powerful script in a chapter of a book. Sometimes that's all people need. And how do I say this in not a negative way? Because I get really pissy about this. I get frustrated when people sit there and blame everybody else, because in the end, we've all been there. All right. I can guarantee you, probably in my 20s and going into my 30s, because I'll be 40 this year and I'm still young, but we're still guilty of this. Every once in a while, I'll catch myself about to pass blame. And I have to say, I got to give props to a company called T-Mobile. People know that company. I used to work for them for years. And as weird as it is, one of their missions and values statements I still use to this day, which is, we are all personally and collectively accountable for results, or in this case, our results. And as soon as you step up, and this goes back to that energy transfer, and what you're discussing here is that when you finally, and pardon this term, own your shit, own your responsibilities, own your life, I think that is a big unlock. And I speak to this only because there's so much rampant cases of anxiety and depression and everything else, especially just on a rampant increase. And everybody's trying to use drugs as a Band-Aid. And this goes back to my healthy lifestyle balance piece, is that what you're writing about, we're talking about from a scientific and a faithful standpoint, but also I talk about from a nutritional and sleep, or Jack Cruz talking about mitochondrial health. Like, these are the components that we all need to be at least looking at or considering, and finding which one's going to finally click for each person, because this is all stuff that we personally can invest in to unlock ourselves and finally defeat these demons. And I speak to this only because I have somebody in my family who suffers from depression, and it frustrates me. But in the end, she's never once stepped up and owned her stuff. And it's just one,
sure.
And we just, over the years, it's just, she's somebody I care a lot about. But at the same point, I can only help people you can only help the willing. And sometimes your family is the hardest ones to help. So I'm sure you have examples of that.
It is. And that goes back to, to use your words, owning your shit, that, your loved one who's struggling, it's hard to let that go, to do what you can and release and trust that they'll figure it out. And if they don't, they'll have some consequences that they'll experience, which hopefully they'll learn, right? That they'll do better. But yes, we do have responsibility, and that's another part of my calling, that, we have the most precious resource, which is our life. And it's like, what are we doing with this? And are we really making the most of what we've been given? And I don't think most people can say they are. And that's part of what I want to do, is help people get to a point where they feel like they're living on their purpose and living their optimal life. Kind of go back to the natural
and
resources,
not living for that
and
next big salary.
Yeah, or whatever it is, that there's so much more, and everybody's different. Everybody has different gifts, whatever it may be. And that's a beautiful thing, that, not everybody really, like me, wants to know why, right? That's the kind of the thing. I kind of want to know why. I want to share. I want to help people with that. That's kind of what makes me tick. Other people, they're much more nurturing, and they have other attributes that they can shine that way. Athletes or artists, visual artists, whatever it may be, that everybody has these talents. And it's really to give the best expression of those is really what I want to help bring about as part of a movement, much like we've done with the overall energy. See, like Tesla cars, Priuses, people use recycling, bags in grocery stores, putting solar on their homes, just using energy more efficiently, demand side meters, smart meters, all these things, the Nest programmable thermostats.
Oh yeah.
All this stuff, but we don't really do the same thing for us. We look at our Facebook all the time. We're frantic, going back and forth, multitasking, trying to do these things, and really not being very efficient. Where, if the One Thing book, I like that book a lot. Deep Work is another book that I like. It goes into great detail about the importance of concentrated effort on tasks that can really make a difference. Instead of being scattered and kind of half-ass on things, you can really make a concerted effort towards particular goals, whatever's in front of you. Sorry to keep swearing, but
no, this is open format, man. We don't care. I've said way worse on this show because in the end, this is what it's all about. It's truth. It's passion. You're letting that energy roam free. And if it comes out in the form of shit or ass, oh, well, I don't care because this is reality, man. This is transparency. And I didn't want to lose this spot where we're at because you're talking about books. And I've been wanting, ever since I learned more about you, and this started clicking with me, I've been a self-help guy, God, for a while now. I've been doing it for probably almost 10 years. It's just been a slow and very long journey because I think this is what everybody should be doing. But in that category, there's a very famous book, and it was turned into a movie. And I don't know if you're going to be considering aligning yourself with any of their principles they talk about in there, but I just see some crossovers. But what do you think about the connection of this whole The Secret? And have you ever reviewed that book, by the way?
I've watched the movie parts of it. I don't really remember the book, so I don't know if I've read it, but a lot of the authors, other people that were in it, I mean, I know...
Yeah, they had a lot of well-known people in it.
The law of attraction and sort of that metaphysical, Think and Grow Rich, the Norman Vincent Peale.
Their big piece of the book is Law of Attraction. They talk about the whole positive thinking, recreating that magnetism like the universe will provide if you have that the magnetized, basically if you dwell on the negative, you attract negative. You dwell on the positive, you attract the positive. So it's funny because people rip on that book all the time. It's like, okay, great. I'm going to think positive thoughts about this, about having a Corvette, and it's just going to show up in a couple of weeks.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's not what they're trying to say. Let's just be.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And they've actually had I think in the book and on the movie, they had a physicist in it and a couple of other, scientists as well as spiritual people. And like my girlfriend watched it and she's just like, wow, this is the most hokey thing ever because she's very scientific. She's a veterinary doctor. Then I've got other friends of mine who turned me on to it that are very successful professional people, but they believe in this law of attraction mindset too. And they highlight gratitude, visualization, positivity. And really, if I leave the world of The Secret and just leave with those three words, those all should be generating a positive electrical current, I believe, in our lives and in our universe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And forgive me, I don't have my notes in front of me or anything like that, but I think it was Einstein that said, the most important question, whether you believe the universe is friendly or not. And, it's kind of like if you feel like you're being persecuted and the world's against you and you've been oppressed and victimized, you're going to act in a certain way versus, if you believe you're part of a divine creation and you are here, you've been imbued with divine energy and you're here to share a unique gift that only you have, you're going to kind of act in a different way and approach things in a different way. So, mindset is very important, but, I think it's like biasing circuits, right? You can put a charge into something, but at some point you need to be able to discharge and just kind of be and just observe the thoughts and not let the energy of the thoughts hit you. I do think there's a danger of being delusional almost and sort of, wishing for this manifestation versus setting an intention and then taking action towards that and then being flexible because, the things that may appear could seem like roadblocks, but when you, in hindsight, you realize those were blessings and, you're kind of taking things as they come your way and not being wrapped up in it. You have a mission, you're moving forward, something's beyond you. I think that's another component is kind of like, why are you doing all of this?
True.
And
I talk about this on multiple episodes on this show, that whether it's health, nutrition, diet change, weight loss goals, fitness goals, workout goals, you're in the CrossFit world, regular gym, business, you're trying to start an entrepreneurial journey, write a book, whatever it may be. If you haven't taken the time to define and substantiate your why behind why you're doing all of this, you are going to struggle. You're going to have issues. You will more than likely fail. You can have all the positive thoughts in the world. You need to have a clear why.
yes, I agree. Absolutely.
And I think that's what was your awakening, right? Part of your awakening was like a whole new, and sounds to me like a solidified why. And that why really sounds like it really kicked you into a whole new life chapter for you.
Well, it did. And I started slowly, at that point, I don't think I really gave a lot of thought to helping others. I might have contributed some, to the United Way or whatever, but it was more just
More
I didn't
procedural.
really give it much thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And
I'm with you on this, because I used to do that for years. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to balance my income, and I'm going to, admittedly, where I met PJ, not to segue, but on this exact point, we went to an event together in California. The second one was last year, and this year in Vegas is the third year for Thrive. And the slogan behind their brand is "Make Money Matter." And they had like 20 some speakers. Jack Canfield was there. Did you make it to Thrive, by the way?
I did not. I went to the first one.
That's right. That's right.
So I'll look forward to meeting you and PJ at this third one in Las Vegas for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Cause I bought my tickets at the event in Cali. So I'm heading back. So, great. So you're in the same Facebook community with us then, probably.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Okay. I'm kind of a wallflower, but I'm there.
That's okay, because when this episode goes out, I'll be blowing it up in that group, because every time I do a Thrive attendee that I've met through connections from Thrive, I want to honor that in the Thrive community so people understand what's happening behind the scenes. But going back to our point here is that it's that's part of this, right? It's we're making money matter, not so much from, oh, well, I'm procedurally donating something. No, like, why are you doing that? And part of what they spoke about at this event was, if you align yourself with a charity or multiple charities, if you can afford to do that, or if you say, hey, every so much money coming into my business or in my life, I am going to set aside a certain percentage and do something with that, you're now establishing purpose with your financial success. And that was something that I needed to hear at that event too, is because I actually started feeling guilty, because what if I'm making better money? Am I becoming too materialistic? And that was part of what they talked about. They said, listen, and actually I remember hearing a quote years ago. It was like, there's no such thing as a poor philanthropist. I can never say the word. Philanthropist. You can't be a poor one, because if you're trying to give back and do more, there's only so much human time that you can exchange for a charity and organization. And that's important too. Putting in, some sweat equity is very important. A lot of charities that I've worked with over the years, we need that. I've done years of work with Habitat for Humanity. I swung a lot of hammers and climbed across a lot of rooftops. So, but I think that's part of this, is like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you aligning with this organization or that organization? And even if it's only like 0.5% or 1%, it doesn't have to be a ton of money, but feel good about the fact that if you are succeeding and you are growing with success, part of their message is, if you want to succeed even more, you should align yourself with something of a charitable, organization, because it just helps amplify things to the next level, but not in a procedural way.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Give from the your heart, and not expecting things, not expecting to be recognized or written up that you're this level of contributor, and or that sort of thing. But you're really genuinely giving of yourself, the time, talent, treasure, whatever it may be, and it's just quite remarkable. But for me, I experienced a little bit of reluctance, and then I had to kind of swallow hard as I felt compelled to give money, to give time, to do things that, I could feel myself questioning, like, well, I don't know if I really should do this. But each time I would suspend my doubt and move forward, that it all came back. and then some, which people talk about. They give away money, then more comes back, and it's like part of the law of reciprocity, the flow piece. But there is some circulation that I've experienced from that. But again, it's where you release it and give out of love with really no expectation, just in genuine concern, and it's just a wonderful thing, and it feels really good, that to do that, and it's liberating.
I think that's something that people need to be reminded about too, is your point just now about feeling good when you give, whether it's financially or just your time. Some people say, oh, well, you do all that charity work because you're just trying to make yourself feel better. And it's like, is that such a bad thing? I mean, let's be real. Okay. There is some percentage of selfishness here because we're trying to help others while also growing ourselves with that expression. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely. And I think there's a quote that's either misattributed or I can't figure out if it was Shakespeare or Picasso. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. And so, there's nothing that we do that's really permanent. We may build a monument or write a book or whatever, but we are here for a limited time. So what are we going to do with it? Are we going to be clutching and kind of acting out of a scarcity mindset that we've got to accumulate everything, or are we part of something that is abundant and we can share with those around us, which enriches us too? It just feels good to share knowledge. And you see that with people with mentor-mentee relationship, philanthropists, Andrew Carnegie, whomever, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, they amass huge fortunes and then they give away their money.
Yeah, actually the biggest amount that, oh God, who did you just say? Not Gates. He gave it to the Gates Foundation. Buffett gave away the largest portion of his fortune in history to the Gates Foundation. I think that foundation is working with children, basically helping, I think long story short, they're helping youth deaths around the world in poor countries. So that's one of the beauties of becoming financially rich and successful, is that if you've amassed it, you don't need it. You clearly keep succeeding and keep making more money. So why not give it away? One of the best quotes from Cole Hatter at this past year's, the founder of Thrive, was, he said, and actually one of his speakers, I think Philip McKiernan, said this too. I can't remember which one. Long story short here is that he said, listen, if you want to be a millionaire, don't stop at 1 million, make 2 million so you can give 1 million away. That's it.
That's beautiful. Right. Well, that's really good.
It was so simple.
So much, that to help others is the fastest way to help yourself, right? I mean, you add value to others, whatever, you should be compensated. But, that's part of the beauty, I think, of the time that we're living. There's a lot of strife and, religious conflict and other things, but at the same time, a movement of social awareness and people donating portions of their profits to support charities and things like that. It seems to be much more acceptance and much more widespread, like the Thrive movement. I mean, that's what spoke to me about their message, was like, this is great. This is what is needed. We need more of this, to kind of the rising tide. We can help others, help ourselves along the same way. And there's just so much more potential out there, and we can't do it by ourselves. We are social people. And, I may be a little bit of an introvert. I have some extroverted capabilis, but
you're an engineer. That's pretty normal, actually. No, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
I've been in rock bands and do other stuff, but it's kind of to get it out there and to help, ask for help, offer your help. You mentioned Warren Buffett. I just happened to catch a little bit of a show on HBO, Becoming Warren Buffett, I think is the name of it. And didn't finish it, but got to the part where he was talking with some high school kids, I believe, and told them, they needed to take care of their body and their mind, because it's going to be with them the whole life, obviously, but just what he did for his mind and how much he read and learned. and applied. And so, kind of using that, his health, they showed him going through McDonald's and stuff like that, which I would argue he could do a little better with his diet.
I'm not going to support that.
No, but the reading part, I would take the reading. Do as he says, not as he does.
I literally, before we started the show today, I was helping a friend drop off a car at the local dealership after we all went out to brunch for servicing. So I was like, instead of you going back to the house, grabbing another car and shuttling back and forth, I'm just going to swing you by, drop you off. That's what friends do. So it just really helped. Anyway, in the car, we had just somehow we could talk about real estate. And I believe the founder of McDonald's, I forget his exact quote, but long story short, that's the system behind McDonald's. It wasn't created to basically kill America with unhealthy food and a really solid system that they built. But really, it is one of the largest real estate investments of all time, because they always make sure they own the property that they build that location at. And that is all controlled by that corporation. Even if you're a franchisee, right, that's their land.
Yeah, I know. Quite remarkable.
Yeah. So it's like, again, you have to study these things. So people don't realize it. They just see, fast food and disgusting food that's all processed on the surface, which I have no problem talking about and putting down. But really behind the method behind the madness was really just one hell of a successful real estate investment venture, man. Like that was like mind blowing and around the world, literally. So.
Yeah, they totally took off for sure.
But back to your point, though, this is what the whole episode's about here. I mean, you talk about it just to rewind back to your original messaging here and to tie it back to your new book that's coming out is, again, dude, let it go, let it flow. I love it because it's simple and it's not rocket science. That's what people are making this too complex in your lives. Okay. The reason why you are failing at change is because you're trying to take on too much or make too much of a drastic shift or change. And it is something as simple as, and on your book cover that's coming out, it's PATH, basically, you can actually define that, but basically to peace and personal power is part of the slogan. And I love the fact you use a light bulb on the front of that. That's pretty cool too. So.
Well, thank you.
But I mean, again, go ahead.
No, just the energy standpoint, and it started out, there was an expression when my daughter was kind of going through her thing, and this will tie in sort of the religious component of it, but some of the nurses, they would be trying to help, and, they would say things like, let go, let God, let go, let God. And it clicked with me at some point because I realized I could not save her, and I had to trust in something else bigger than me. I did everything I could, and it was just so hard to, as a father, provider, protector, to not be able to do something for your child. And through that process of letting go, it ultimately began to flow, right? Where I released, I became peaceful, things happened. I made the rest of the book kind of followed, but yeah, that's how it started. So I'm trying to walk that fine line of not being an electrical engineer, but using some of these scientific, electrical theory to support what I think are really universal spiritual truths.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, clearly you're networking with the right people because, like I said, you and I connected through PJ, and that is one powerful speaker. I just love everything what he's doing. I was honored to bring him on the show. I thought he was one of my favorite people that I met from Thrive, so it was great to bring him on. And actually, I just made a list the other day. Prior to you, I've already had 12 people on the show just from Thrive. Wow. Yeah. So
wow.
I actually think that even though my buddy Michael O'Neill, who was the speaker at this last year's event from Solopreneur Hour podcast, he was also like the maitre d', like he was the head guy, kind of, rocking the stage and bringing people on and off the whole time. And he's got a way more successful podcast than me. And he was my first ever episode, but I definitely think that I've supported the Thrive community actually more than him, because I just realized, I was like, man, I got 12 people on already. I still haven't even gotten Cole on, but he's already responded back to me saying that, yes, he will come on. We just got to find a date.
That's great.
So now you'll be at least really number 13 or 14 now on. So
Well, Lucky, whatever number it is, that's great. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's such a great community. I've met some wonderful people there, and look forward to meeting you in person. And I really believe in the message that Cole and the team have put together for that conference.
Well, and the powerful thing about that message and what you're aligning yourself with, and even what I'm doing with Live the Fuel here, is that it's about the bigger picture. Each of us are going to hone things to a specific message or theme. Like me, I'm tying into those 3 domains of health, business, and lifestyle. You're focusing on obviously empowerment and using your experience from the electrical world and your engineering background and channeling that into helping people understand that flow state into this new book. Cole Hatter, boom, founds the Thrive event. And you go to this event, and it was a perfect example of how there's literally people from all walks of life. Like at first I was like, oh, this is like a real estate convention because there's a lot of people from the real estate world. But no, they're all hustling people trying to grow their own independent, real estate businesses. But that was not everybody there. There was people from other countries. There was people from like me, people that are just budding podcasters, growing a brand, to also ex-corporate guy, ex-firefighter guy, now entrepreneur like me. And then there's people like PJ. And so there's just people from all different walks of life, all different professions, all there for a common theme. We all wanted to understand what it was about making money matter, and then taking that message back and infusing that to help really fuel and build a bigger flow state. I will tie all that together into our messaging and what we're doing with our businesses, our brands, our books, our websites, our podcasts, whatever.
I think that Thrive, with the Thrive Tribe and these movements, right, of making your money matter, doing things with the pencils of promise, doing things with other people, the connections, just being able to take your time, talent, treasure, share that, and make something better than could be otherwise by collaborating with others, the creative exchange, all the things that come from those events and just the connections that follow. So it's a wonderful thing.
It is. It's pretty powerful. And actually, speaking of powerful, you had mentioned before we started the show here that you're going to be putting something together for our listeners. Is that correct?
I am. I've got a free resource that I'll send to you that you can put up with the show notes, where people can go and get some of my material. I'll have one of my ebooks. I'll have some other material. I have a tool that I use to help center me, to ground me. I utilize box breathing a lot, and or 4 square breathing, and just find that it puts me in a flow state fast, more quickly. I have a hard time meditating in a traditional sense. Like I need help. So either I will have binaural beats or some sort of headphone type thing, or just simply using this box breathing really can change my physiology. And I figure, it works for Navy SEALs and combat missions, and being able to regulate your heart rate and being able to kind of calm down quickly. So it's a very effective tool, and some other things for your listeners as well.
I'm loving that. So are we going to have that as like a specific URL to your site, like juliankaufmann.com, /fuel, or is there going to be something else?
It'll be juliankaufmann.com, live the fuel, I believe. I'll have to check my URL. I don't have that up,
okay.
But I'll send that over to you. Sure.
And we'll put that, and again, to our listeners, guys, as always, we put together killer show notes. So when you go back to livethefuel.com and you look at Julian's episode, everything's going to be hyperlinked in there, just like we always do. We have time-stamped messaging throughout the episode if you want to come back and kind of skip back and forth back between all the amazing content that Julie and I were talking about today. So some people need to go back and just revisit like 1 or 2 segments, and we really build a lot of detail into the show notes to allow people to do that. So that way, once you listen to the whole thing, you want to come back and just, poke around a little bit. So Julian, and we're going to hang on line here when I end the recording so I can say goodbye properly. But we always end our episodes with my co-host, ergo you, leaving us with one final word or messaging so our listeners, if they forget everything else they learned on today's episode and they don't go back and look at livethefuel.com, which every listener should at your episode, but what's that final word? What's that final encompassing message that you're really trying to put out to the universe or just out to our listeners out there right now behind juliankaufmann.com?
Well, thank you. I think the message is that we have capabilities and potential that we can realize more of it. And by letting go, we can make it flow.
I love it. Well, there you go. To our listeners, guys, let it go and so you can get to that flow state, and you're going to get that book when it comes out as well. So again, thanks for listening into Julian. Thanks for listening to myself. Again, this is Live the Fuel. We're here to fuel your health, your business, your lifestyle. Keep living the fired up epic life, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. And you're clear.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Well, I hope you had fun.
I did. You're good. You're good.
I'm trying. So, I mean, I hit episode 50 aired on Friday morning. So it was,
congratulations.
It was a big, yeah. And I already have the next 5 already recorded. So
what, or do you release like one a week or what do you do?
2 a week, Monday and Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
wow.
I like to hit people because there's all different kinds of like, I don't know. Some podcasters are like, oh, there's a theme or there's a release schedule. And I said, well, right now, since this is not a monetized podcast and I'm just trying to build the branding, I said, I'm going to focus on 2 a week because on average, the good shows, a lot of people, like if they really enjoy the content, they wish there was more than 1 a week. So I said, all right, I'm going to go with at least 2, but I can't justify 3 yet. That's a lot. And yeah, I mean, this just launched at the beginning of September. So it's literally just over, it's only 6 months old. We've already got over 50 episodes now online. 51 with Jack Cruz goes live Monday. And obviously 52 will be actually Tommy Baker from Thrive goes live on Friday. So
that's awesome. I, another name that I won't be able to pronounce, but the guy from the pumpkin plan you had,
Mark Michalowicz.
Mike
Michalowicz. Yes.
Yeah. Like, he's really good.
He's a big name. That was a big get for me.
Yeah. No, it's great. Congratulations. Yeah. That, I listened to the pumpkin plan. I really enjoyed it. So it's, I liked all of just the way he wrote. And
so did you listen to any of his other books?
Was it the toilet paper plan or something?
So, yeah, the first book was Toilet Paperpreneur or Entrepreneur. Then it was Pumpkin Plan, and then it was Profit First. That's the book that I am obsessed about because it flips the accounting world on its ear. And as somebody who's trying to become a budding entrepreneur like yourself, author and everything else, it changes how we manage our money. It changes us to start actually enjoying our business from the beginning by paying ourselves profit first. It's a whole different accounting methodology. Anyway, so the cool thing is that's why I brought them on the show because we're going to do something they've never done. I'm actually going to go over to New Jersey because they actually have their studio about an hour and a half from me. And actually, I think it's the next week or 2 here. I got to check my schedule, man. But I'm going to go out there, go on their show, and I'm going to be completely transparent. And I'm going to bring my books with me. And because I haven't implemented their profit first system yet. So I'm going to bring, all my records from last year's tax season and what's going to the accountant this year. And I'm going to, because I want to be transparent and to say, listen, this is what it looks like. Go ahead and make fun of me because their podcast is hilarious. These guys are goofballs. But more importantly, I want to be transparent to show people like, listen, I have a lot of things that I hustle and succeed with, but one thing I suck at is with money. And thanks to Thrive, I'm like, man, you know what? We all have our weaknesses, and the sooner you ask for help, the sooner you can get past it. And I can't wait to implement the system. I just literally haven't found the time to do it yet, and that's just my BS excuse. So I said, fine, you know what? Why don't we tie this together into a powerful marketing event for them? Because I'm promoting them all the time on the show anyway. Now I've had Mike on the show, and now that also helped me now go on their show because now I'll be on there, and they have a way bigger listening base than I do. So
that's great. That's really good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Plus, he just released another new book called Surge. Wow. So, but really, Profit First is crushing it. And the new book, Surge, I just haven't had a chance to really listen to it yet because there's so many books.
I think I have Surge.
Okay.
I haven't read it. I read too many, or I actually listen to most of them. but yeah, I need to go check that out. And I'll look, or let me know when you're on his show or whatever. I'd love to hear that.
Oh yeah, like I said, I don't know what's going to be released, but it'll be before the month is out. I'll be over there, and it's either next week or the week after. I'm going out to the studio to do that. And actually, it's funny if you go to his website, MikeMcAllis.com now. Surge is no longer the last book written. They moved Profit First up to the newest because he just re-released it. So they did like a remastered version, and it's really a powerful book and gets you to really think about how you deal with money in your life a lot better. And especially for somebody like you who's considering maybe even breaking away from the jobby job type of world and going full independent one day, it's a really cool book. I think he's an amazing author, and he just says it how it is. And yeah, I agree with you. The Pumpkin Plan was a great book as well.
Yeah, that was it. If you mind me asking, so like, how did you get him? Like, how was that for you to
I tweeted
get him on your show? Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, here's the deal, man. I exist everywhere, and actually that's my tip to you. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. So
I am on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I just don't. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't. The thing that I have is a little bit of a split personality right now, because so my day job, the corporate business development, I enjoy that, but I kind of feel like the author stuff that I'm doing may be taken the wrong way or whatever. Maybe like
there's that risk.
To what I'm.
It happens all the time.
So. So I'm walking that fine line, and just kind of dipping my toe, but I totally agree. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'll connect with you there, sure.
Oh yeah. Well,
is that how you connect?
When I send out my episodes, I blast them everywhere. It goes on Google Plus, it goes on Facebook on my business channel on Live It Fuel, it goes on LinkedIn, it goes on Twitter, it goes on Instagram as well. Like the actual edited image of your headshot with my Live the Fuel show graphics on it goes on Instagram, because in the app world you don't see the show graphics, but on the website, I'm just constantly trying to drive traffic back to the site. So because even if people don't have a podcast app, I have a player built into the website, so people can literally play the episode right from my website too. So
that's great. That's really good. Now, do you have somebody who does your notes and stuff?
So like I'm a marketing consultant. That's what I do for my primary, income. That's my niche, because that's my degree, my background, and I've just started building that. So, but I'm also smart about outsourcing. So,
I was about to say.
Yeah, no, I have a virtual assistant in the UK, and actually I've been helping him grow his brand, because he developed his own virtual assistant business for busy podcasters, and he's specializing in audio file editing, but. And actually, literally in the past 3 weeks, he's now gained like 6 new clients. I think he now has 8 clients now, and he still works a full-time job for like the UK's version of our postal service. So he's still struggling for that balance as well. But he originally launched doing what he does for me. He does it all. I upload all the audio files onto my Google Drive, which he has access to that specific folder. He edits everything. I give him an admin access to the back end of my site, to the podcast. He uploads everything, does all the show notes. He does it all. He doesn't do that for he doesn't do that for other people. Right now, he's only acquiring clients to do audio editing, because that happens. It's so much faster, and he can turn that around very, very quickly. So,
well, that's good, and it's great that you do all the. I looked at your stuff. You give so much value, and it does set you apart. Where I use Rainmaker as my web hosting kind of platform. It's like Kajabi, but even there, people, they don't really put much effort in their show notes or anything, and it's hard to.
Here's the thing:
you got timestamp,
study the big guys. John Lee Dumas is one of the biggest podcasters out there from EO Fire, and on every one of his episodes, he brags about his time-stamped show notes. So you darn well from day one. I was like, we're putting that in. I was like, if he's bragging about it, and he's got Mr. I built my $1 million house in Puerto Rico this past year with podcast money, then great. I'm studying the guys that are bigger than me and incorporating what I like. I don't incorporate everything, but I take what I like. And I think show notes, more importantly, even if it's not to be nice to your listeners, it's valuable from an internet standpoint because Google
Totally.
likes it. Google likes it when they see websites linking to other websites. So they will increase your ranking because they say, oh, this guy's tying a whole bunch of other people's sites, content, social media together in one place. That makes us happy. Google likes that. So
I got you. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And like I said, I went with Rainmaker because they have the ability to do podcasting and hosting and stuff like that. But that's, kind of one step at a time. And I have like YouTube stuff, and I did a course, and I'm kind of all over the place, but try to get the book out. So
one lesson on that, and I've had to keep reminding myself with, is social media is very powerful, right? And I consult on this. So I tell people, this is free tips for you, is that you can exist everywhere. And that's good for real estate perspective. Like own your brand, your name, whatever it is. Like Live the Fuel. Live the Fuel has a profile everywhere. And I even own scottmulvaney.com, but I have it redirected to go right to Live the Fuel because that is the primary brand that I'm building. So my name will naturally build recognition. I like that little word there, rankignition instead of recognition. So you're building rank on online and recognition together. So I'm patient with that. But also I know that I can't crush it on YouTube, podcasting, and everywhere else all at the same time. So right now, when I launch a podcast episode, that's my primary platform because I own that, and I can just blast that out to all those channels in one fell sweep, twice a week, and I'm done. Twitter,
that's good.
Mostly, when I'm listening to other people's podcasts, like Mike Michalowicz's show and Vinny Tortorich, he just came back on my show last night for a second visit. He's got a big following, and so I tweet their shows from the podcast app. Most people don't do that, so at least they see every week because I crush a lot of podcasts. I'm a listener as well, so I want to make sure they know that I'm one of their fans, and I'm tweeting. And then when it comes time for me to reach out, like, oh, I've seen Live the Fuel before. He talks about my show all the time.
Yeah. No, that's good.
So you give more than you receive. Okay. Build the relationship through giving, be patient, and then reach out. That's kind of how I go about things.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, good. Well, I appreciate that. Do you, it's weird. Like, do you have any just as I'm trying to get this book out, any thoughts about other people, things that might be interested, or
in relation to additional entries into your book, or is your book done?
My book's done. I'm just in the final, I just want to kind of get it out, to the widest audience I can.
Let me see. Oh, as far as other podcasters, for example.
Or other social or thought leaders, just anything that clicks. Or I know you mentioned that Jack Cruz guy, which it's kind of ironic that a guy that I'm in a mastermind group, Jack Cruz has something called like the Quantum something or other Facebook group, and everybody talks about his work, and he's in there very infrequently, but I think he was his work is very prominent in this group. And, but they just talk about him nonstop.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny that everybody nowadays are building communities like on Facebook. Like, for example, Vinny Tortorich, he runs the Fitness Confidential podcast. He's the author of the Fitness Confidential book. It's a bestseller on Amazon as well. And now he's actually a guest co-host on the famous Adam Carolla show. So Adam Carolla, that's a big show. So his podcast, he calls it the Carolla effect. Ever since he started going on Adam's show, now all the Adam's listeners are starting to check out his show because he's now Adam's like fitness guru. So it's funny. It's funny how we cross pollinate and we start sharing the energy, so to speak. So, but Vinny has somebody launched a Vinny Tortorich community online because he branded the term and trademarked it NSNG, which is no sugars, no grains. It's a healthy lifestyle, cutting excess sugar and grains out of your diet. And somebody launched a Facebook group for that. There's thousands of people in there, and it's not he's just a member. He doesn't even really comment in there. Yeah.
That's great.
So I didn't even know about Jack Cruz's thing. I learned about him I brought on a follower of his practices, they have their own podcast called Fitfluential Radio. And Kevin Cottrell, I had brought on through somebody referred me to him. So I tweeted him and reached out to him as well. And boom, he agreed to come on the show. And then Jack Cruz literally shared my episode on his Facebook page of Kevin Cottrell, because Kevin's one of his followers and is his tutor, the tutelage and everything else. So that's actually still the highest ranking episode of my show now because of the whole Jack Cruz sharing.
That is really cool.
Yeah. Like, it's funny. I did this recording. Like, actually, I recorded this today, even if I don't have your video. I'm still going to air this on my YouTube channel because I'm just experimenting. I want to see what kind of things come out of this. And I'm still recording right now because this is free content. So in the end, YouTube University, but I went ahead and just tested it out. I aired Jack Cruz's YouTube video of this episode first a couple days ago. It's already approaching 300 views already, and I didn't tell anybody about it. I don't even have a lot of followers on YouTube because I don't spend enough time on there. I did last year more, but I haven't been on there in a while. And that episode's growing on its own, I think, just from his name recognition. And the podcast doesn't air until Monday.
Wow. So it's good to get it kind of all excited kind of beforehand.
Yeah. And that's all I'm doing. All I did was, as soon as the Zoom recording stops here today, it starts compressing the video file into an MP3 or whatever they do it to it. And then I just open YouTube and I pick out a cover image. I do some keyword work, in the bodies of the YouTube thing, and I upload that file and I stick it up. Or I wait until the podcast episode comes out and then I'll do it then, which is what I'm actually going to be doing. Because I just want to see from a double dipping, who's gonna get more views, and also does that help drive YouTubers back to the podcast? So it's just more experimentation. So, but to answer your original question, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying your original question was as far as audience. If you want to target things from a health and a fitness perspective, I could try and reach out to Tommy. Tommy Baker runs Tommy Baker Fitness, and he's got he's rebranding his site right now, and he's a fellow Thriver. And actually, you should just probably introduce each other because he's very active in the Facebook group. And he actually relaunched this week. He's relaunching this week a new rebrand for his, he's got a coaching community. Anyway, that's why I moved this episode to Friday, because he just needed this week to launch his new brand, and then that's going to go online. I'm just blanking on the name of it right now. I think it's named after his podcast, actually. One second. Where is it here? I've been talking to so many people. Everybody's brands are overlapping in my head.
Yeah.
It's not even. See, this is what we talked about, actually, because I was like, hey, man, your website is Tommy Baker Fitness. And I was like, it has a podcast link, but where's the name of the show? And he's like, well, yeah, I'm branching that out into its own site or something. So that's what he's literally relaunching here. Actually, I think it's called Resist Average Academy. So I think there could be some good. Resist Average Academy is the name on iTunes. So check out his podcast.
Okay.
And either grab the bull by the horns and just comment in the Thrive community to him directly, or Facebook message him privately and tell him that you and I were talking. You just recorded today, because his episode, you'll be going out right after him. Here's this whole thing about networking. Anybody who watches this video, okay, here's your tip. It's all about closing the circle. That's the whole point of LinkedIn, right? Circles of influence. How many circles are you separated by? This is what it's all about. Like, hey, you and I and him are all in the same Thrive community. You're Thrive first year, returning third year. I'm never was first year. I'm Thrive second year. He and I didn't even meet at Thrive. We just connected through the community. And I said, hey, let's get you on the show. And then I'm eventually going to come back and get on his show. So there you go.
Great, yeah.
So
there are a lot of folks there in Thrive for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like 4 or 5. Actually, well, there was 600 attendees this last year. So there's at least 400 to 600 people in that Facebook community. And I'm just thinking about anybody else who actually has a podcast. As far as because I really think podcasting is going to provide a nice platform for you. And PJ doesn't have one. Nicholas Bailey, Ellery Wells does have a podcast, but he hasn't come out with new content in a while. I don't know if you know Ellery Wells.
I think I'm connected with him or friends with him.
Okay,
but I don't.
He does have a podcast, and he admitted when his show aired like a week or two ago, and I said, "Listen, you got to get a new episode up on the podcast," and he said he is. So, and he's doing a lot of. he's working a lot with businesses and clients and stuff like that. And I think mindset comes into this, but he's also on that keyword for you, empowerment. His slogan is, it's his name, by the way. He does the same thing you do, ElleryWells.com. And it's empowering and equipping entrepreneurs. So I think you going on his show and providing content and a new author, right? I think that could be something fun to work with as well.
Yeah. And okay. Well, I appreciate that. I'll reach out to them. I try to be, I don't know, maybe a little reserved. Like I said, I'm still suffering from this identity.
Well, here's the deal. I just did this for Vinny last night. I introduced Vinny to Jack over email. So if you want, because you have to email me back here today anyway and send me some approved images that you are okay with me using for the blog post, obviously, like a headshot or a headshot or something to be used for the graphic for the episode. And we always throw at least one episode into the blog content. But also, if you do have any quality YouTube content that you want to include with your branding, we'll embed at least one YouTube video into the show notes as well. So just think about that. But if you want, send a separate email back to me. Just say, hey, from what we discussed, Scott, you mentioned a couple guys, Ellery and Tommy, and then I'll just forward that and then write my own little introduction saying, hey guys, fellow Thrive introduction here. I know you guys are always looking for new content for your show. He's got a new book coming out. You guys should chat. Like, perfect. So I'll fuel the intro for you.
Absolutely. And I'll be promoting your stuff. What can I do for you with your show and your platform?
Honestly, you can just wait until your episode comes out. And the biggest thing I teach people is when the episode comes out, share it.
I will. I don't know how. Don't worry.
The funny thing is not everybody does it. Like Michael O'Neill never shared his episode with us. He's one of the lowest performing episodes I ever had. And he helped me work on building Live the Fuel. And I purposely put him up as episode 001 as an honor. And I figured he'd share that to his following, and he never did. So I was like, well, that wasn't really cool. So Michael, if you ever hear this YouTube video or this feed, what the heck, bro? I mean, we talk about marketing all the time. You should be cross-sharing. I share everybody's content. All right. So I truly believe in giving more than you receive. I got to call people out sometimes.
That's good. So Thrive, you're all set, the Hard Rock Hotel and...
Oh crap! You know what? I do need to book that room. Thank you for reminding me. I should go online because we have a room block, I think.
Well, I don't think they've done it just yet.
That's right. That's right. They haven't gotten back to us on the room block yet.
So yeah, I talked to Brian about it. I had some scheduling issues that prevented me from going last year, so definitely want to make sure I got my calendar all blocked off and raring to go. So,
this is going to be a pain in the butt this year because literally last week, one of my friends said, "Hey, by the way, here's the save the date for his wedding, and it's in upstate New York on that Friday." So I was like, "Well, I'm going to go to your wedding, and then if I can time it right, I'm going to leave that night and just go to the Syracuse, New York airport or something, and just." I think he's somewhere near Syracuse, New York. And I'm just going to fly from there to Vegas because I'm not going to miss the weekend. I've already bought the ticket. I'm already invested. So it's going to be a long weekend for me.
Yeah, you'll get on the red eye and show up at the dinner maybe.
Well, and last year's event, I actually booked a really, really nice room in San Diego. And because I had some credits on hotels.com. So I was like, from just my travels. So I said, you know what? I'm going to upgrade the room. Got 2 big like queen size beds. And then I put a message out to the Facebook community, and I had just become a member. And I said, hey, if any budding entrepreneurs or go-getters are trying to be budget conscious, here you go. Like you can become a roommate and we'll network. So and actually that his name was David Byler, and he ended up getting sick. He was supposed to record in the hotel room on that trip because again, this year I'm bringing my portable recording gear because last year I had recorded 3 episodes out there at the event.
That's good. That's so good. I was wondering about it. Good. Yeah. You're kind of you've got a good thing going for sure.
Oh, I'm hustling, man.
You make a lot of impact. Yeah, no, you do. That's good.
So, I mean, hey, I'm not even at 1,000 downloads per episode yet. Like that's when you know your show is starting to get established, when you're hitting, at least 1,000 to 2,000 downloads per episode. But again, I'm only like 6 months old. We just passed.
You're
we're over 7,000 downloads now as of a couple days ago.
Yeah.
but literally we had just passed 5,000 at the beginning of the month. So we had our biggest jump in the past 3 weeks than I've ever seen. So there's momentum building. So,
well, and what you're doing is so smart, like, especially with Mike and doing that cross-pollination, going on his platform, vice versa, scaling what you're doing. So that's really, really good.
hey, you know what? Like we talked about on your episode, you got to take risks. You got to think outside the box. If we just keep doing everything by the book, nothing is going to change. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So
exactly,
you got to take a risk, try something different. Either when I go on their show, it either ends up being one of the best episodes they've ever had, or it's a flop. But he even admitted, he's like, we've never done anything like that. I'm really excited actually having a live case study that they've never done before. So
that's ballsy and transparent, giving value, all those things that that resonates very, very well with people for sure. And
that's what I learned.
I'm in sales. Like that's the weird thing that I can sell products and services, and then when you sort of first start stepping out as an individual brand, it's kind of like, whoa, this is a little weird.
It's different.
Or, it's different, right? Because you don't want to
I'm with you. I've been a sales professional for years. Sales and marketing go hand in hand. The biggest shift is when you start building your own brand, you have to switch into a more marketing mindset, but the sales mindset cannot leave. You still have to put yourself into the shoes or the ears, in this case, of your audience. What do you think your audience is going to be impressed by or blown away by? It's not about me. It's about what's going to help them. And
exactly.
When we start getting too selfish or too self-focused, that's when you start hurting your brand and you start hurting your potential to grow. You got to be in it for the long haul. And that's what I'm excited about for you. Like, you're taking your time, you're being smart, and you've already had a couple of dry runs on some books, ebooks, et cetera. So I use this term all the time because I'm a fitness nut and I coach CrossFit. It's like, guys, you got to put in the reps. This is everything we're doing. Schooling didn't teach me anything. Schooling, the degree did not teach me anything about sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, even the psychology. All that did was open the doors and refocus my ability to educate myself, which I'm not going to take that fuel away from the fire. But then as soon as I got out, you got to keep redeveloping yourself. You got to put in the reps, because that's the only way you're going to learn and build new skill sets.
Right. And it's sort of that analogy that you just don't all of a sudden start, deadlifting 1,000 pounds. You got to start off and do your reps, do the techniques, whatever, keep building up. It doesn't just happen overnight. And,
it took me a year to get to, I haven't even tested it in a while. My deadlift PR is actually at 375 pounds. It took me a year to get to that. And
that's good.
I haven't tested that in a while because I don't care about the highest weights because I'm an endurance athlete. So it's good to test your strength once in a while, but I don't really push it. But a perfect example right there. I think I was stuck at like 250, and then I gained over 100 pounds over about a year and a half. But it took repetitive training, a week off, week on, week off, week on, cycling through different movements, and you're putting in the reps.
Have you ever heard of a guy named James Clear?
No.
He's located in Durham, but he's a weightlifter, blogger. Well, he's a blogger, weightlifter, and a photographer. And he does a lot on habits and studies. He writes really well. He's got a lot of stuff, but he may be a good person. I had met him and tried to help another podcaster out, but it kind of fizzled out. But when you're talking about, he tracks all his weightlifting stuff, and it's kind of just necessary. I had shoulder surgery, I had rotator cuff surgery a year ago. It's finally healed. I'm ready to start back. I want to do like the strong lifts or something.
I've had my shoulder rebuilt twice, so been there, done that many times.
God, I had my left one done 10 years ago. My right one was a bicep tendinosis and bone spurs and all the other stuff. So I'm 51, so I'm not as young as I used to be.
You know what? Again, I coach people 50s and 60 years old all the time. Last Friday night's class, every single person in the class last night hit a new PR on their. We were doing a split jerk movement. So a clean and jerk is an Olympic lifting movement. It's jerking that weight over your head. So we were just working on jerk movements from a barbell rig, not from the ground. And there was people with some clear mobility issues. So I was working and showing them, thanks to me having 2 surgeries from 99 to 2007, and a lot of PT, you learn a lot of things about your shoulders.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the appreciation of lacrosse balls, right?
Yeah, that's great for a focal trigger point area. But if you need to get even deeper, you got to go even smaller, but also foam rollers. And my biggest tool is a PVC pipe. Like it's about 3 to 4, actually it's 4 feet long, PVC pipe, 5 feet long. And there's
you
different
roll
ways.
On
No.
that?
I'd have to show it to you, but visually. But you basically grab it with your hand, and you flip the whole entire PVC pipe back behind your shoulder. Then you reach across your chest with your opposite arm, grab that PVC, and pull the PVC across your body. And what happens is your entire forearm rotates outward because you're still holding onto the pipe with that first arm. And it literally creates a better open rack position. So if you've ever done a front squat where you have the bar racked on the front of your body with your elbows up high, a lot of people can't.
I can't do that.
Right. So, well, it's an amazing stretch. So, and that 2 years ago, that's what really helped me open up my shoulder area and improve that front rack position. So now I have no problem having my elbows and my tricep is perfectly parallel with the ground. Elbows straight out. My left never was a problem. The right took some work. So that's a common stretch in the CrossFit.
Stand out about 6 inches above my. I can't, so my wrists are supporting everything. But anyway, we'll have to. You'll have to show me that in Vegas.
Well, I guarantee you, I'll be doing at least one CrossFit workout out there. But I always drop into some random boxes out there too. But yeah, I found your boy James Clear. He's got like 44,000 followers on Facebook on his like page. So he's definitely got a good brand. I've never heard of him before, but. And actually, John Lee Dumas likes him as well.
He's on LinkedIn a lot. He publishes a lot on LinkedIn, and I met him here. I can't think of the guy's name. He was kind of a famous lifestyle entrepreneur who died maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He kind of fell off of a mountain, and I can't think of the guy's name. But so. James Clear writes like weekly blog posts, but they're very detailed kind of habits, and maybe a good person to try to connect with. I'll see what I can do for you. I can't promise you because it kind of like it went cold, but it might be, especially with your health and fitness and all the things you're doing with your group. Another person to kind of connect with. So, but at any rate, Scott, I really appreciate it. I've got to run out, but I will get you the links and all that stuff tomorrow.
Absolutely. Okay? Yeah. And are we already friends on Facebook, or are you on Facebook?
I would presume.
Yeah,
I am. I've got my personal one, and I got my Coco
Holdings. There we go. Yeah, we're friends.
My other page. I've got an author page, which is so weird because Facebook won't verify me on my author page, which is weird. Bizarre. Yeah. So.
All right, we'll get all this stuff. When you send the email, if you know all your URLs, like I can then just copy and paste all that into. I use Trello for project management, and that's how I communicate back and forth with my VA. And I put all the images up there. I put all the text in, and he just puts it all together. So.
Okay. Well, good. I'll look at make sure you have my Amazon author page, all the other stuff.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Absolutely,
Scott,
man.
Thank you so much.
All right. You enjoy the day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening in again. And very long recording. But, hey, for those of you who find this video, you got to enjoy the podcast virtually without even listening to the podcast. And you got the after party where we ended up talking about a whole lot more for another 40 minutes here. So a lot of free knowledge, free stuff. So enjoy. Thanks for following Live the Fuel. Peace.